from the beginning. So my dad was a firefighter, and he worked in the city. So on 9/11, he was a 9/11 first responder, and he got sick from that. He was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, and it's like a really rare autoimmune disease, and they didn't know how to treat it, so they prescribed him a bunch of painkillers, and he got addicted to them, and he had just like an infinite supply, and it got worse and worse. And I don't really know when it started, but he started hitting my mom, and when I was maybe 7 or 8, I started getting between them because I want to protect my mom, and then I became the target. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm anxious. Anyway, and while that was all going on, it just felt so uncontrollable what was being done to me, but I couldn't control what I ate, and you know, everything I consumed, I could control that down to the T, you know? So that gave me this like sense of control that I didn't have. And as the years got on, my dad got, you know, more addicted and more violent. And eventually he ended up dying from his sickness in 2019. And I remember the night he died, I looked around at all my family crying, and I said, I can't wait till everyone stops being sad, because I wasn't sad. Because this man abused me my whole life, and I felt so dirty inside that I was happy my father died. And it took me a really long time to know that that was okay, because I was a child and this man was abusing me. And a few months later, quarantine started, and my mom was a functioning alcoholic throughout my whole life. But when my dad died, it got really bad. She became fully dysfunctional, and then when COVID hit, we were in quarantine, and she drank all day, every single day, and it was just so bad. Throughout that time, I was also struggling with my eating, but no one really knew my whole life because I was in like a larger body and I never went underweight. No one really noticed. It was really easy to hide, but in 2020 is when it got really, really bad, and like I ended up needing like medical attention. I was like rushed to the hospital a few times, and the whole time, regardless of what I did, I never went underweight. So I convinced myself that I wasn't sick if I wasn't underweight. I wasn't like these other people. Like in my mind, I was doing my body a favor. I was being healthy. Like in my mind, I was doing the right thing. And then I ended up getting rushed to the hospital one time, and they said I was in the beginning stages of heart and liver failure. And it was just so foreign to me hearing these things, because it was like, how can I look like this and die, right, from my eating disorder? And it was also just, it felt so unfair, because it was like, why can't I look like everybody else who has an eating disorder, you know? So it took me a really, like, the biggest decision I ever made in my whole life was, do I die or do I gain weight? And to me then, it was like this completely rational decision, and I genuinely couldn't decide which one would be worse. And obviously I chose not dying, because I'm still here. And throughout that, my mom was so supportive of my eating disorder. She never got it. Like, she didn't understand what I was going through, but she was there for me. She was always there to reassure me. And I remember one time after the first start of my treatment, when I was like full, like in my recovery, I was, you know, nearing my first kind of relapse, like struggle again. And I told her, and she went to ShopRite and she bought me a bunch of my favorite Pillsbury, the cookies that you put in the oven. And like, because I'm very not sentimental. I don't talk about how I feel. So this was like her way of nonchalantly showing me that she was there for me and that she loved me and that she wanted me to eat. And then January of last year was my 18th birthday. And my mom relapsed in her drinking. And I came home one night with my friends and she was drunk. I hadn't seen her drunk in so long. And I was just so angry, but I couldn't reason with a drunk person. So I went to my grandma's And she ended up getting so angry that I had found her that she kicked me out. And I was still in high school. Thank God I had my grandma, who I stayed with. And after a month, she realized that she did have a problem. Because I had to grow up so young, I took care of everything for her, so she didn't know she was dysfunctional. I got the bills paid, I went grocery shopping, I cleaned the house, I did the dishes. She thought it was fine because it was a functional life, but I was doing the functioning. So when I left is when things got bad. My sister wasn't getting to school, the dishes were piling up, bills weren't getting paid, and she called me on the phone one night in February, and she said, "Tor, I'm sorry." And I said, "Mom, I was never mad at you, I just needed you to realize that you were sick, because, I couldn't make her stop drinking. She needed to choose that for herself." And after that, she did. And I agreed to come home. And the week she was detoxing, she died. And that was the craziest thing that ever happened in my life. I knew my mom's drinking would kill her, but I didn't think it would kill her while I was in high school, after my dad had already died, after I barely had anything left. And that was one of the hardest things I will ever have to deal with. But after that, I was able to heal, because no matter how much I loved my mom, she was still an abusive alcoholic at the end of the day. And it's really hard for me to accept that, because that means, not to quote BoJack Horseman, but I'll never have the good relationship that I wanted. There's no going back, there's no making it better. She's never going to get sober because she's dead. And that was really hard to accept, but since I've been able to heal, I've been able to process all of my traumas and everything I've been through, and I've since gotten engaged, and I'm thriving in college. I have a friend group, and I'm happy for once. I never in my life once thought that I wouldn't be in a state of panic, in a state of fear 24/7, and now I'm not. And I also have a poem that I wrote in the beginning of my recovery when I was struggling with the idea of not dying anymore. It's called Growing Pains. I said, "When I noticed my hair stopped falling out, it felt like the world had stopped, as if everything we worked for was for nothing. You're failing," Anna whispered to me. I jump out of bed and I no longer see stars, the beautiful stars that once glimmered with success. The ferocious lion living within my stomach has finally lost his voice, the raspy voice that once symbolized a near victory. The fruits of my womb have begun to sprout once again, the fragile fertility that once indicated failure. "Oh body, what have we done? You're losing," she said to me. "Oh Anna, what I would do to please you. Your validation I hold so highly, higher than my own well-being. The beauty of being so fragile. But I am no longer fragile, and I no longer wake to the feeling of hunger, but rather to satisfaction. Oh body, we are sick." Anna asks me, "What about everything we worked for?" "I need to get better," I say. "I'm dying. Your stars no longer hold any beauty, and your roar is no longer within me. My fruits will blossom proudly in the garden I tended to while you were away. My hair is no longer yours, and I'm no longer yours." That's all.